Halacha from Tafshin Chaf Hey, 1965, Purim 1965. We are holding in the middle of the Farbrengen from that year. We're going to start from the fourth paragraph from the top of the page, where it says Benegel L'Kriyas HaMegillah, under the paragraph that begins Lamed Aleph. Benegel L'Kriyas HaMegillah, concerning the reading of the Megillah. Mehechen Koyde Adam HaMegillah V'Yosef Ba'adecha B'Asei. The Gemara asks, from where does a person begin to read the Megillah to fulfill his obligation of Mikra Megillah? Yesh Kama Deyes, there are different opinions. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Aimer B'Laylahu. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says that since the miracle began from the words B'Laylahu, another Dutch Nasa Melech, when we have to raise our voice at that night, so he says, because that's when the strength, the power of the miracle began. So that's where a person begins to read the Megillah from. Hascholas bit lagzer, it's the beginning of where the decree was nullified. Rabbi Yossi says that you read from where it says what happened with Haman and so on. Took Vishal Haman, the strength of Haman, that Achashverosh raised up Haman at that time. Haskol Satzaris, it's the beginning of where the difficulties happened for the Yidden. Rabbi Yehuda, Ish Yehudi, Rabbi Yehuda says, from where it says Ish Yehudi, Haya B'Shushan Abira, Shmai Mordechai Ben Yoav Ben Shim Ben Kish, which is Tok Vishal Mordechai, the strength of Mordechai, which is Ketzad Heichen HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sagula, that it's how Hashem prepared the redemption. Rab Meir Aimer Kula, Rab Meir says we read the entire Megillah from the beginning till the end. Mi Vayhib Me'achashverish, from Vayhib Me'achashverish, V'cheini Halacha, and so the Halacha follows. And the Rebbe in the next few paragraphs talks about this whole idea about it. Why is it necessary to begin from Vayhib Me'achashverish? Well, in a movement, seemingly it's not understood. To be able to know that there was a big decree and a terrible tzara happening against the Yidden. And afterwards, like it says in Al Nisim, you annulled his scheme, and you ruined his thought. It's sufficient if we begin for where it says that that night the sleep of the king escaped him, and so on. Well, at most, you can begin from where after these matters, Achashverosh raised up Haman. We also want to know Mordechai's lineage and pedigree. We can begin from where it says that there was a Jewish person in Shushan Abira. What's the matter? The entire lengthy story of it was the days of Achashverosh and all the details that talks about his party and talks about 180 days in the party in Shushan. All of these things seemingly are not important for the story of the Megillah. When it only matters the result, the outcome. There was a decree against the Jews to destroy them. And afterwards it was transformed. And that's still in all, even though it was this is the important part of Megillah, still no, it was established to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of the reading of Megillah. We have to read it in its entirety. What's the sense behind it? That you should have to read all about what Achashverosh was a drunkard for all those 180 days, etc. We're going to skip over to the next page, to where it says Lamed Beis, second paragraph. If it's insufficient, the wonder. Now we have to read the entire Megillah from the words Vayhi Me'achashverosh, while it was only, what all that mattered is the conclusion, that there was a decree against the Jewish people to destroy them. And afterwards it was transformed to, instead of being a decree to being a negative, it was the Yidden were saved. Moisifim Razal, the Chazal add another concept which is also a wonder. Oidover. Another thing the Chazal say, Kol Sifra Nevi'im Hasidim Libato L'Maisa Mashiach. All the books of the prophets, all the Yeshaya, Navi, Yechezkel, Yirmiyahu, etc., etc., they will all cease when Mashiach comes. Chutz min Megillas Esther v'halachas, except for Megillas Esther and the halachas that we need to know, Torah Sheba'al Peh, all the halachas that we need to know what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to live a Jewish life, etc. So the Rebbe says like this: V'lechur, seemingly bishlei halachas le'yibatlu, to say that the halachas will not cease. Kivin she'yitztarchu leida ketz l'snaig. It's understood. The Torah goes on, so therefore we're going to have to know, just like we have to know now what type of, how to do a mitzvah, so we're going to have to know that when Mashiach comes. Why is it that all the prophecies and all the holy writings, so specifically Megillas Esther, that will not cease? According to what we said before, that he said earlier, sorry, I lost my place. 1 second. I actually skipped a paragraph. You'll forgive me. Back to the third paragraph on the page. He's going to explain the Bias HaMashiach, in the coming of Mashiach, then will be fulfilled the promise that the glory of Hashem will become revealed and all flesh will see together. I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and daughters will prophesy. Now prophecy won't be such a rare thing. Now prophecy is going to be an amazing thing previously it was a rare thing. Now it's going to be a common thing when Mashiach comes. Therefore, also your sons and your daughters, will receive prophecy from above. So then all the books of prophets will cease. What do you mean they will cease? The idea of prophecy won't seem as important and as valued. Because every Jewish child will be a Navi. But Megillas Esther and the halachas, they will not cease. So the Rebbe says, back, this is the paragraph we began and I got lost in. It makes sense the halachas will not cease. Because when Mashiach comes, we have to know what the halach is. We still are going to keep mitzvahs, so we need to know the halachas. What's the reason that from all the prophecies and all the holy writings, Dafka, specifically the Megillas Esther, will not cease? According to what I said before, it will remain in its full importance. What's so special about Megillas Esther that will matter even when Mashiach comes? What is the greatness of the importance of Megillas Esther more than all the other books of the Nevi'im? That when Mashiach comes, there won't be any importance and value to all the Nevi'im. Since I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, and my sons and your sons and daughters will prophesy, Megillas Esther. Specifically Megillas Esther, Hashem's name is not even mentioned once in the entire Megillas Esther. It's hinted in different places. Farbrengen down that there's the Rashi Tevis of certain words is the name Yudke Vavke, or the ends of certain words, the last letters hint at Hashem's names. Hashem's name is barely mentioned. But all the whole stories about the drunken shenanigans that was going on in Pari's palace, that Megillah goes into all the details. So still in all, when you're talking about that, like the importance of Megillas Esther will not cease even in the days of Moshiach. And this itself, not just from that night, Elagami Vayivim Achashverosh, also from where it says it will be in the days of Achashverosh. All the way going back there. Therefore, we must say, Esther, there's something in Megillas Esther, it's even more elevated than all the books of the prophets. From all the other parts of the Torah, for that reason, in Gambi Moshiach, also in the days of Moshiach, years of Chiddush Gadol, this will still be a great novelty that we'll have to remember what happened by Esther. So he says like this. Lamed Gimel, the bottom of the page. Therefore, Achidish b'Megillas Esther, Mudgish b'Divrei Mission shetzrichim lekroisa kulam avihim Achashverosh. The novelty in Megillas Esther is emphasizing the words of the Mishnah. We need to read it entirely from Vayivim Achashverosh. Hasipur the Vayivim Achashverosh, the story of Vayivim Achashverosh. Hamoylech ma'odu ad Kush Shavasar Medina that reigns from Hodu till Kush. Sorry, forgot to turn the page for you guys. 127 countries. In the third year of his reign, he made a party. And Vashti, in the continuation of the story with Vashti. That is a separate story. Just witnessing what happened in the court at that time, if you would have been there at that time and you would have asked a Jew in the street, does it matter for the Jews, or as in our parents' time they used to call it, is it good for the Jews that Vashti was killed? Is it good for the Jews that there was a 180-day party in Shushan Bira? You say, I don't know, it has anything to do with the Yidden. So, concerning the Jewish people, there was a separate story. Later on, there was a decree upon them. They fasted. They also did some natural things by sending Esther to ask for our nation. They nullified the Gzeira. So looking at it as two separate stories was possible until the Megillah was written. Once the Megillah was written, by putting it both together, you all of a sudden saw, that's why Vashti had to die, so that Esther should be able to be in place, so that she'd be able to be available to do everything over there. That what we look at it as a separate story, unrelated to the Yidden, the beginning of the Megillah, that was all before it was written into Megillas Esther. The Megillas Esther Megala, as opposed to Megillas Esther, reveals, by the way, in other places the Rebbe mentions this word Megillah from the word Gilui, revelation. Megillah, even though Esther is from the word concealment, we always bring down Vanoichi Haster Aster. On the other hand, the Megillah reveals things out of their concealment. Because this very reason, Hashem ran the world in a certain way and brought about certain types of things to take place in such a way that many years prior to that, prior to this, Achashverosh should reign over 127 countries. And after 3 years, they had to make a party. And then they make it that Vashti shouldn't want to come. This means to say as follows. Megalim lanu, third paragraph on the page, bein im evinim zois, bein im lav, whether we understand it or we don't understand it, it's revealed to us, shekedei sheyuchol liyas v'nafechu sheyishta Yehudim heim b'saneim, so it should be able to be that it became transformed, that the Yidden should be able to rule in their enemies. Hu tzchol liyas escholad v'hivim Achashverosh, or had to be the beginning. The beginning begins with, and Achashverosh reigned, HaMelech Moed Kush, he reigned from Hodu to Kush. V'ilu Achashverosh lo yoya HaMelech Moed Kush, if Achashverosh would not been the one in power from Hodu to Kush, lo yoya yachal liyas v'napechu, it wouldn't be able to be v'napechu. So the theme that the Rebbe is going to go with over here is that things that are going on in the world that seemingly have no relationship with the Yidden, we have to know that it's truly connected with us. So he says, seemingly, we're talking about one nation that are scattered and spread out amongst the nations. Malachi Ashoris, Hashem has to bother Malachim, Kol Seder Ishtalshlos, the entire chain order of descent of the spiritual realms, Kol Seder Hateva, and the entire order of nature, Las Achashverosh Moishel Bekipa, to make Achashverosh one that rules over the entire globe. Shebeshvil Zetzarch L'Salvel Galgal L'Seviv Galgal Shon Meshach Kam Shonim. Hashem has to run a whole program over many years to be able to lead to this. Shekarach Kam Keinu Muhammas, that's involved also with wars that took place beforehand. Lifnei Kain in Bavel, beforehand there were wars with Bavel, Lachrazem, Kodesh, V'chol V'chol, and afterwards with Kodesh. L'chura haya efshel asadas leis b'derech pshuta yoser. Seemingly all this could have been arranged in a more simple way. So the point is that even though it's not understood why Hashem took this circuitous route, and it's a big wonder, the halacha is from where do you read the Megillah to fulfill the obligation? You have to read the entire Megillah from the beginning. That the idea of Purim begins from, it was in the days of Achashverosh that reigns from Hoidu till Kush. Even though the event itself occurred years later in Shushan Abira, not in Hoidu and not in Kush and not in all these countries in between. In other words, if it's not occurring in all these countries in between, why even bring that up? Last paragraph on the page, that's the novelty of Megillus Esther over everything else that we have in Tanakh. The reading of the Megillah does not begin that it was transformed for them. We cannot arrive at the part of the Megillah that says that was transformed, that the Jews ruled over their enemies, Elim kin koinas kala as a Megillah kula, only if we read the entire Megillah. Kasher Achashverosh wa moilech mohidu ad kush, when Achashverosh is the one who's reigning from Hoidu till Kush. Azai boim soif kol soif lo anapechu. Then eventually we come to have turned it over. Atu ulai choyshev shehin chayachol asis yoser toy bin yarim shalcha. You perhaps think that you could manage your matters better. Avla kodesh baruch hu yedeya es yitzirasai. Hashem knows His creation. He knows who He's dealing with. Umaydiya umayid, and He lets us know and He attests. Megillus Esther, like He writes in Megillus Esther, to be able to arrive at the power of the miracle. Then this happens when we read the Megillah in its entirety from the beginning to know how Hashem put all the pieces into place way before the actual miracle took place. We know that the Esther came to the Chachamim and said, write down my story for all times. In other words, it's not just a one-time miracle that occurred then, but it matters for all generations. This above-mentioned lesson matters not just for the days of Purim, but also for generations. Every generation of Yid asked this question. Despite the fact that there is a big world out there, we tell a Yid, he has to go against the flow, he has to go contrary to the way the world runs. And they tell him, you're not doing it just to be a contrarian, just to challenge the world, just to be anti-establishment. Adrab, just the opposite. A Yid's true existence is the main crux of the entire world. The existence of a Yid, the being of the Yid, is the true being, the main primary purpose of the world. And for you, the entire world exists, like it says Bereshis, and we know in the Rashi right away at the beginning of Chumash, it says Bishvil Yisrael shenikru Reishis. For the sake of Yidden that are called Reishis, the entire world is created. So the entire world really revolves around the Yidden. Yisrael Gufa and Yidden themselves, What did their existence revolve around? Bishvil HaTorah Nikras Reishis. Like Rashi also says, for the sake of Torah, it's called Reishis. So, then he brings Rambam. Back the Mosil Pirish Mishnayis Meirich Am Bebir Maim Razal. The Rambam in his introduction to his commentary Mishnayis speaks at length in what the Chazal say. Kol Olam Kulei LeNivra LeTzavos Ozeh. The entire world was created only to command this one. In other words, the Jew. Shepirushay Lahasir Itzvoinai Veshimai Yichidusai. The world was created to remove his Yid's sadness and his being all alone. A person lacks a lot of things, and he needs many things. He needs to learn how to plow and how to harvest, and to thresh, and to grind, and to bake. And so too he'll need to learn how to spin wool into thread, and he needs to know how to weave. So therefore, how will a Yid find enough time if he has to learn all these different skills to study and to acquire wisdom? Therefore, it was brought into existence other people on this world. They should be able to do all of these things, plowing and sowing and harvesting and clothes making and so on. It's necessary to live in a civilized place, so that the wise person, the sage that wants to sit and learn, has everything ready. Doesn't have to be worried, I have to take away from my learning now because I got to go ahead and weave my clothes. This is only an example that this is found in the world that the Rambam brings. Still, no, logically, it doesn't yet explain the matter. The lechura seemingly makes no sense. That they should direct and make a whole world spin. That a small amount, 1 in 1,000, bekamas sheyask b'toira, in 1 in 1,000 in quantity, that's going to be involved in Torah. In other words, how does it make any sense that there is such a huge world for a minor person to sit and learn Torah? In other words, it seemingly doesn't make any sense that such a huge universe, such a huge world should be for a few individuals. Not only concerning the world in regards to the Jewish people, but also when a person looks at their own daily life. He counts and calculates the number of hours in the day, and he calculates what is his order of the day. How much time is set aside for sleep, and how many hours are set aside for eating and drinking and other matters of health, and also being involved in matters of the world. Let's skip down to the last line. If he also now calculates the days of his youth when he was young, before the person became obligated to mitzvah. So if we add that also to the years of the person's life that seemingly don't have the main reason of his existence, of his entire life, only a minority of his time is devoted to Torah mitzvahs. And the majority of time is used for matters that are only of auxiliary importance. Concerning this, he asked, why does he have to read the Megillah from the beginning? It's better if he began from where it says that it was transformed, which spiritually means he asks of Hashem, wouldn't it have been better if we would have been created a bar mitzvah boy or a bas mitzvah girl, that she starts right away doing Torah mitzvahs? And in addition to that, Yiftarais machila v'shtia v'sheina v'eskem mischor. He would. Hashem would release us from any involvement in eating and drinking and sleeping and being involved in business. And Hashem should give us the capability. If He only would like to have it, to study Torah, fulfill mitzvahs, without a need for any other involvement according to Torah. In other words, the Rebbe is saying that the whole idea of beginning the Megillah from V'napechu instead of Vayivim Me'achashverish is the same thing like a person asking in their own lives, first of all, why do you need to have such a big world just for a few Yidden that are involved in Torah mitzvahs? And why do you need to have for the few hours, for the small amount of time daily and in my lifetime I'm involved in Torah mitzvahs, I have to have a whole entire life other than Torah mitzvahs? So the Rebbe says in the third paragraph, on my knowledge, the response for this is Aidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Hashem. That he says that what has to be included in Megillas Esther. First of all, he created a Yid in a soul invested and embedded in the body. Before the person was created, the entire involvement of a Yid was only in serving his Creator. I swear by Hashem that I stood before him, meaning Gan Eden. The idea of standing means davening. That's what it means. I stood before him, Gan Eden. I was davening. I was serving Hashem. And now this is the way Malachim do things, that they're constantly in service of Hashem. But the Torah was not given to the Malachim that serve Hashem. And the world was not created for Malachim, but for the Yidden. Specifically, the Neshama should be down here below. What's my connection with what it says? And it will be in the days of Achashverosh. In other words, all the other things in the world, what's going on with Achashverosh and the 188th feast, the same thing. What's my connection with eating and drinking and sleeping and business and all these things? This is not what I'm about. What's my connection? What it says at the end of the Megillah, not the beginning of the Megillah. That for the Jewish people was light and joy and happiness and glory. There's a Torah, light is going on Torah, like the Chazal says, Simcha Zeh Yom Tov, joy is going on the joy of Yom Tov. Sasim Zumila, Sasim is going on the Bris Milah, Vayikarel Tfilin, and glory is going on Tfilin. Why are they dragging a Yid? They should have a connection with Vayivim Achashverosh. You have to do with worldly things. So we tell a Yid, from where does a person read the Megillah and fulfills his obligation? Kola, its entirety. Only then can we reach the transformation. And now the Rebbe connects it with the Moshiach, that we say when Moshiach comes, Megillas Esther still remain, not like all the other Nevuos. This matters also for the days of Mashiach. Even in the days of Mashiach, transformed from the nations, a clear language that they should all serve them together. It won't be a state that will only be Yidden and Torah and Hashem. You can think when Mashiach comes, it'll be completely holy stuff. Mashiach's times is completely spiritual. So we'll have Yidden, we'll have Torah, we'll have Hashem. That's it. No. That's not going to be. Even when Mashiach comes, Yidden will be the minority amongst the nations. Like it says that foreigners, meaning non-Jews, will stand up and they will take care of your sheep. They will take them out to pasture. When Mashiach comes, there'll be sacrifices. Therefore, you can't just have Yidden without animals. So there has to be animals. If there's animals, you also need to have vegetation that you eat. So that even a lion, like the cattle, will eat hay, straw, like it says. When Mashiach comes, they'll still be plowing, they'll still be sowing. Like we say in Tillim, it says, he will come with a song, the one that's carrying his bundles of wheat, even when Moshiach comes. The Chol Shara Malachis and all the other types of labor, Hakshuris and Sugadoim, that's connected with the inanimate things. The Rebbe says, seemingly it's not understood. This is what Mashiach's time is about. That he says, Soif Kol Sof, Figi Azman, eventually already the time came. Tzchkom Devart, he barely was able to wait for it. Sheniftarnu Mechevle Agos, that we were released from the suffering of exile. Zakinu L'Bias HaMashiach, we merited the coming of Mashiach. Tachlis HaBriyah, the goal of the creation. Like that Rambam wrote, that not when Mashiach comes, we are free to learn Torah and its wisdom, without any type of disturbances. In such a way that the earth is filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters cover the sea. Why is there even a need that all the nations should have a clear language? That they should be transformed to be Yidden. Don't keep Goyim. Make the Goyim into Yidden. Vim lav, and if they don't become Yidden, what's the need that there should be foreigners that we should be involved with them? Leave us alone. We should be able to sit and learn without any types of troubles and confusions, without any need for planting and sowing. We shouldn't have to carry our bundles of wheat. We shouldn't have to eat and drink, etc. Ulapoil, the Rebbe says in the second paragraph, in actuality, not only when Mashiach comes will be the entire species of human beings, but also the entire species of living animals, and and vegetation, and the inanimate things. In such a manner, the entire world of all these different types of things were only created to command this person, for the sake of the Eden, the fewest of all the nations, that they should be speaking in Torah in such a way that the earth is filled with the knowledge of Hashem like the waters covers the sea. True, true, it'll become fulfilled where it says that the glory of Hashem will become revealed, and all flesh will see together that Hashem's mouth spoke. Like it's brought down in Medrash laws, in the future, if a person goes, I guess by mistake, to pick a fig on Shabbos, so the fig tree will scream out, or the fig itself will scream out and say, Shabbos, Shabbos, don't pick me. Even concerning inanimate things, the stone will cry out and says what the person's about. Like it says, that the stone will cry out from the wall. Despite that, despite the revelation of godliness which will be in inanimate things and in organic and vegetation, but after all said and done, the inanimate things will only be in service. It'll only be auxiliary. Like by people, the foreigners will be the ones that will take your sheep out to pasture. But the main goal of the Eden will be the existence of the Eden to be involved in Torah and its wisdom. Like we said before, seemingly this makes no sense. That entire world should run so that a small amount of Yidden should be able to sit calmly and to study Torah. And that's why Megillas Esther has to be even Mashiach's times, because Megillas Esther shows us how the entire world turned around just for the Yidden. So he says, concerning this, it says, Shagam be Moshiach like the bottle of Megillas Esther, even in the times of Moshiach, Megillas Esther will not cease. Gam kasher loy tiach shivas l'chol nevuos, even when all prophecies will not have value and importance, because Hashem says, I will spill out my spirit on all flesh, that everybody is going to prophesize. Like the Rambam wrote, that knowledge and wisdom will increase. Like it's brought down the Zohar, should be ikvus of the Mashiach, that in the heels of Mashiach, even before Mashiach comes, even the heels that are coming Mashiach, there will be a great knowledge in Torah, even by young children. After, how much more so, after the glory of Hashem becomes revealed in the coming of Mashiach, also then they will study Torah with Yidden. Megillas Esther will still have to derive this lesson from Megillas Esther. They call the way to come to transforming from the negative to the positive is through the entire story, beginning from Vayivim Me'achashverish. Last line on the page, Lamed Vav. And the main thing is concerning what we derive in the present, in our service. A Yid should not become scared when he calculates, and he sees that the Klal Yisrael in general is a small minority. It's a minority of a minority in comparison to the rest of the nations of the world. By Yidden himself, his own quote-unquote party, those are following in his type of approach. They are also a minority of a minority. How can he say that he is fighting for truth, the Torah of life and its mitzvahs, that the mitzvah says about it, that you should live with them? The lechura seemingly it makes no sense to say that Hashem created such a huge world which for a small group of Jews that put on film, live shem tzitzis, wear tzitzis, shaim Shabbos, they keep Shabbos, kosher, they eat kosher. So we have the lesson that we learn from the story and the time of Achashverosh. In such a way, this is written down, like Esther asked, for all generations. For the Jewish people, it should be light and joy, etc. For that, it was the entire kingship of Achashverosh over all the 127 countries. The entire politics that went on over there, all. So to be able to conclude, just like it was then, so too it's in every single generation. We shouldn't be scared of the quantity, that quantitatively we are tiny. Even if the quantity is so much greater than us, many times over, when a Jew has the quality that's connected with the source, the life of all life, that counterbalances and that outweighs that the entire world and everything is now on the side of truth and life. Islam at Zayin, in the middle of the page. But like we spoke about many times, the Rebbe says, Hashem wanted in his great kindness, he wanted to reveal somewhat, in some way that it should be understood. The Rebbe said it doesn't make any sense logically. How can you say that the entire quantity of the world is just for a small minority in quantity of Yidden? So even though it really makes no sense, but the Rebbe says Hashem still wanted that things should make sense somehow, and the Rebbe is going to give an example that we find in our world. And the Rebbe says from other things that we see an example that certain things make sense, even though the true sense of things is going to come when Mashiach comes. So he says, Dugma, for example, Bechlolos in Torah, and the general idea of Torah, even though in general mitzvahs are beyond reason. There's still reasons for mitzvahs, at least on the general idea of mitzvahs. Even if we don't necessarily know the details or the details of the details of the mitzvahs, why specifically there is the mitzvah this way, not a different way. Because of Rambam Nevuchim, like the Rambam writes in Nevuchim, Sheshayach Tamrak al Klos HaMitzvah. There's a reason only for the general mitzvah, but not on the details of it. Just to give an example, someone once asked me why we don't have pink tefillin. So, you're right. There's no reason. This is what it says, that we have to have black tefillin. It's halach l'maish mesinai. If we want to be meshaved the salevas hamoyach, the idea of tefillin is to make our brain and our mind and our heart subservient to Hashem, fine. But it could have equally be done with pink tefillin than black tefillin. So this is the part that's the details of the mitzvahs that are beyond our understanding. So too, concerning the inner part of the Torah, in our generations would reveal the secrets of the Torah, the mysteries of the Torah, but only a small amount, a very tiny edge of it. By prefacing what it says in the Medrash, that the Torah that a person learns now is just like air, insignificant in comparison to the Torah in the times of Moshiach. But despite the fact that the Torah we're learning now is insignificant, but it brings us to have Torah when Moshiach comes. To be able to reach the time when we'll be able to hear the Torah of Mashiach's time, we have to learn the Torah now, even though he has no significance in comparison to that Torah. Though it's only like air in comparison to the Torah of Mashiach. The same thing. So we should be able to have any connection with the reasons of the Torah, the way it will become revealed when Mashiach comes. We need to learn at least a bit of it, an edge of it that was revealed now. Similar to what it says about the Neshama when it comes to Gan Eden, it says, fortunate is someone that comes here to Gan Eden and his Torah study is in his hand. Like the Alter Rebbe explains, so to be able to study Torah in Gan Eden and to be able to understand it. Only when he has his Torah study in his hand, meaning he has already in his hand what he learned in this world. Though there's a great chasm and a great gap between the Torah that's studied in Gan Eden, in what's called the yeshiva of the heavens, or the yeshiva of Hashem, or the yeshiva of the faithful shepherd, in comparison to the Torah that we learn in this world. To be able to come here to this yeshiva, to be able to enter this yeshiva, he needs to have his study in his hands. Just like concerning coming into the Torah study of Gan Eden, one needs to begin with the Torah study here. The same thing, to be able to reach the level of Torah study of Mashiach's times, we need to begin with Torah now. Second paragraph on the page. So too, concerning what we said before, also in the future, when the glory of Hashem will become revealed, Yiru, and then they will see even if they don't understand that that there's only minority of those that study Torah and fulfill mitzvahs. And rather, all the rest of the world is those that will stand up, the foreigners, and they will take your sheep out to pasture. So how can we understand this? So he says that we can understand it from the power of the animal. Specifically in the latter years, As we come closer to the time that will become revealed the glory of Hashem, it was revealed in the world even in a small quantity of material, which makes up the atom bomb, it could be hidden unbelievable power in qualitatively. That through it you can destroy Chas v'Shalom, an entire world and everything in it. Million, a myriad, milliard, billion, though the entire world could be millions of times over or billions of times over than the explosion that you use to be able to destroy. If this is true, when it comes to a negative thing, to punishment, to destruction, Allah is coming, how much more so it's when it's coming to the good. That the good measure is so much more than the bad. That in a small amount we could insert a great amount of quality. Powerful and unbelievable energy. That through that great qualitative energy, even though it's a small amount in quantity, you could build up an entire world and everything in it. There's no intellectual reason for it, how it's possible in a tiny atom you could have all this energy. That's unbelievable amount. But there is an example of the above mentioned. Even through a small amount. If we use out the powers that's found in it fully, can build up a whole world. Like we said before, that the power of good is so much greater than the power of the negative. We find there's a Maimer Chazal that 500 times the good measure is more than the bad measure. Even more so, until in a way that's infinitely greater. So concerning what we said, concerning being written down for generations, we appoint someone that rules over the entire world. In other words, that through that appointment will come about that the decree against all the Yidden will be nullified. Whoever thinks into it and contemplates upon this could find an example of this in every single generation and in many details. In their own individual life. Sometimes it takes many years later to realize this. That a particular event happened tens of years ago, decades ago. So an event that happened decades ago caused for him either a minor salvation or even a great salvation. So to concerning Klal Yisrael in general. Like the Rambam writes, this an actual existence when a Yid adds one mitzvah, through that he outweighs himself and the entire world to the side of merit. He brings salvation through the coming of Moshiach. And this means one activity of a Yid, one Yid, in one moment. It has capability to change and transform, to bring Mashiach down here below 10 handbreadths, in a way of joy, goodness and kindness that's visible and revealed, light and joy and happiness and glory.